Yo, what is going on, Headliner Nation? Santa swag is here, baby, and in my bag of gifts, I have got some fantasy knowledge for all of you that are playing for a fantasy championship this week. Congratulations on making it this far. But really, what in the world was the NFL thinking having Wednesday games during week 17? This sucks for fantasy football purposes. Now, there are a couple of points that I need to make sure that you understand heading into this video. The first point, we are splitting the start and sits into two different videos this week. And just like Thanksgiving week, we're gonna talk about the matchup as a whole. So every single matchup is gonna have quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. This video is gonna have all the matchups from the two games on Wednesday, Thursday, and all the games on Saturday as well. And then the second video will have all the games on Sunday and then the game on Monday Night Football. Point number two, these videos are being recorded on Monday. So as of this recording, there's a lot of injury information that we do not have as of yet. So if there's any players that are banged up currently, you'll need to make sure that you check in on those yourself as the week goes on. We'll do the best that we can to try and update you at some point in time, but we're doing the best that we possibly can. And I'm sorry, but we are not working a whole lot on Christmas Eve, and we're definitely not working on Christmas Day either. So unfortunately, there are some things that you're gonna have to do yourself this week because there's some information that we're just not gonna have available to you right away. But we do have two games on Christmas Day this week, and the first one is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs heading to the Pittsburgh Steelers. One more win and the Kansas City Chiefs clinch home field advantage throughout the playoffs, and I certainly am going to expect them to have all of their guys out here this week in a matchup going up against Pittsburgh. Win, and it's all over with. Week 18, everybody can take a rest, but in week 17, they're still playing for that first round bye right now. Patrick Mahomes, DeAndre Hopkins, Xavier Worthy, and Travis Kelce are all going to be medium risk players this week. This matchup with Pittsburgh is not going to be easy. And right now, the Kansas City Chiefs are the only team with a winning record that has yet to score 30 points in a game yet this season. This offense is not what it used to be. Now, Hollywood Brown is back, which is kind of help opening some things up, but this Pittsburgh defense is definitely a lot better than some others that they have faced. And those defenses have given Kansas City enough trouble as it is. Now, Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt are both high-risk players because even though Isaiah Pacheco has come back, Kareem Hunt has been the quote-unquote lead back the last couple of weeks. He has performed better at this point in time. So Kareem Hunt right now on Wednesday against Pittsburgh is the lead back is not something that I'm wanting to deal with. Hollywood Brown is going to be a high risk for me as well because he's definitely going to get some looks, but I'm not trying to rely on him in my fantasy championship this late in the season. And Noah Gray, after he had been playing well this past week, really kind of disappeared. It wasn't utilized whatsoever. Travis Kelce saw the majority of work. He is the safest bet when it comes to pass catchers. Now for Pittsburgh, Russell Wilson is still going to be a medium risk. Unfortunately, he's not playing with the type of ceiling that we saw when he first took over, but it doesn't mean that he's still not a decent bet if you need a quarterback this week. Now, when it comes to the running back position, high risk for Najee Harris and Jalen Warren. Neither of these guys have been all that decent over the last couple of games, and it's really hard to rely on them going up against the #1 run defense in all of football. As of right now, George Pickens is still listed as questionable, but there is a strong indication that he can return this week. If he can come back, he should have a solid floor. Based on targets alone in this game, you could see George Pickens with a top 24 floor. But really for me, I don't know if his ceiling quite gets into the top 12 potential. I think we're looking at a guy that is a solid wide receiver too. And if he plays Calvin Austin, he becomes a high risk. Pat Freiermuth let us down this past week, and if George Pickens is back this coming week, it's hard for me to look at Pat Freiermuth as anything close to being high risk. But because we don't know about George Pickens as of yet, Pat Freiermuth will still be a medium risk. Of the two matchups on Christmas Day, Baltimore and Houston feels like it's going to be way more fun to watch. Lamar Jackson is an easy start. He's a low-risk guy. Derrick Henry's a low-risk guy. Both of these guys you're putting in your lineup. Derrick Henry against a tough Pittsburgh defense last week, No worries whatsoever. But the wide receivers and tight ends, none of them are going to carry any type of a low risk designation for me. Yeah, love Lamar Jackson, but who's all the yards going to go to? Who are the touchdowns going to go to? How much do they ultimately run the football in this type of a matchup? That's where things get a little bit hairy trying to decide what to do. Now, Zay Flowers had a solid game last week, but unfortunately, he hadn't had many solid games over the last several weeks leading up to this point. Rashad Bateman, he has touchdown potential, but really that's the thing. It's touchdowns are bust for him, so he's a very high-risk play. Mark Andrews, he continues to score touchdowns, but if he doesn't score, he's going to leave you hanging. Isaiah Likely scores, and he scores every 7 or 8 weeks, it feels like, but when he does, he's fantasy viable. Everybody gets excited, and then he disappears the next game. So while we're going to see a whole lot of Derrick Henry, and Lamar Jackson's going to be just fine, it's really hard to pinpoint what receiver is going to be the best. Now, the passing game for Houston definitely feels pretty safe for me. When I take a look at what's going to happen at this point, CJ Stroud against the Baltimore secondary, maybe he doesn't have the biggest upside in the world, but I still think he could end up having a solid day overall. If I'm starting CJ Stroud, it's for his floor, not his ceiling. And then Nico Collins will definitely get his. But with Tank Dell being injured, Dalton Schultz, who kind of stepped up last week, will likely be the number 2 target again this week. Joe Mixon's going to be a medium risk, and right now he is a little bit banged up, has been over the last couple of weeks. We're recording this early, so he doesn't technically have a questionable designation, but he has been banged up. This is a tougher matchup. I'm not going to put him as a high-risk play, though, because it is Joe Mixon, and he's been fantastic this season. He wasn't great last week, and I know he hurt a lot of you, unfortunately, but that's the way it goes. Sometimes we ride or die with our studs, and we end up dying, and it doesn't feel all that great. If you're looking for like a low end like type wide receiver 3 guy, Robert Woods could have enough targets this week based on not having Tank Dell to kind of fit into your lineup if you have a wide receiver 3 position that needs to be filled. Thursday Night Football is going to be Seattle at Chicago this week, and right now we don't know a whole lot about the Seattle running back position. There's a good chance that Kenneth Walker is just going to end up missing this week. He was already banged up coming into last week. Zach Charbonnet was supposed to be a captain and the starter, but then he only had 1 carry for -1 yards. Kenneth Walker had 8 carries. He had several targets as well, and Kenneth Walker was still the RB1. Now, he got hurt in the 4th quarter, and this is one of those names you're going to have to keep an eye on because as of right now, we know it's an ankle injury, but we don't know how bad it is. And with it being a short week, there's a good chance there's going to be no Kenneth Walker. But as of right now, Zach Charbonnet is going to be a medium risk. Going up against Chicago, we know that their defense can get absolutely smoked by the running back position. So if Kenneth Walker is out this week, Zach Charbonnet becomes a low-risk play for me. Now, the passing game may not be as good. Detroit did tear him apart last week going up against Chicago, but Geno Smith to DK Metcalf, they had a good week, but really haven't had a whole lot of success leading up to that. JSN is going to be a low risk for me, though, because he's getting targets galore. Noah Fant's going to be a high risk, but in this matchup, Sam Laporta scored last week. It wouldn't be shocking if Noah Fant didn't have a little bit of fantasy value, but he might not be starter worthy for the championships. It's really hard for me to invest one way or another in the Chicago offense because Caleb Williams had a fantastic day against Detroit. A banged up secondary, you had to think that Caleb Williams was going to be somewhat successful. And if it hadn't been for 2 Rome Odunze fumbles, it's really hard to tell where this offense would have ended up landing. DJ Moore gets his targets but hasn't been super successful. Odunze's been getting more work in the passing game. Keenan Allen is like the number 1 target, it feels like right now. But just when it feels like he's going to keep going, all of a sudden they back off. So Caleb Williams against this defense, medium risk. I think he has a decent floor, but I'm not really excited about the ceiling. DeAndre Swift has a really nice matchup, but he sucks, and they can't run the ball whatsoever. So DeAndre Swift, to me, is a guy that has an okay floor, but you're really risking where that ceiling is going to be. He's more of a flex option for me. All the wide receivers are a medium risk. If you want to take a shot with them, you're going to have to. My best bet out of this group has to be Keenan Allen, but you can never tell on any given night. The only person I'm staying away from for sure is Cole Kmet. I don't care that he scored a touchdown last week. He's been non-existent for several weeks now. now. If there's one matchup that I'm not loving in this early slate, it's gotta be this game right here, the Chargers and the New England Patriots. Outside of Justin Herbert and Ladd McConkey, I am not really feeling any of the players in this matchup. Now, there's gonna be a pretty safe floor for Herbert and McConkey. We've seen it for several weeks now, and even in tougher matchups, they've played fairly well. And in this matchup against New England, we definitely could have more of the same. Christian Gonzalez probably isn't gonna be anywhere near Ladd McConkey. Now, he may be on Quentin Johnston or Josh Palmer if Josh Palmer can play. So we could potentially flip those two, medium and high risk, at some point in time once we know about Josh Palmer. If Josh Palmer doesn't play, Quentin Johnston's going to become a high risk for me as well. Gus Edwards was not bad last week, and he had 2 touchdowns. But if it's not for the touchdowns, then there's not really a whole lot of excitement for me. And not only that, but J.K. Dobbins was just designated to return from the IR. Literally, as I was getting ready to record this session. So he is a high risk for me, because do we end up seeing him back this week? Probably not, but if for some reason he's designated to return and is activated before Saturday, maybe we see J.K. Dobbins getting a few touches in place of Gus Edwards. We have to account for that. This early in the week recording, we have to make sure that we bring that up. Now, Will Dissly is obviously out. We got Hayden Hurst back. Stone Smart saw a few targets, but Hurst only saw 1 target. Seems like Stone Smart is still technically the guy, but with Hayden Hurst back, he's not the streaming option I once thought he was. And on the New England side of the ball, it might not be an awful matchup, but it's not nearly enough for me to say I'm going to start Drake May in my championships. In fact, the only person here that I would even consider starting is going to be Ramondre Stevenson, and he's even a medium risk because he fumbled yet again last week, but so did Antonio Gibson, and they almost entirely split snaps. So as of right now, when you look at Ramondre Stevenson, if he's a guy that you have to rely on this week, you got to know the ceiling may not be that high. The floor might be okay, especially if he scores a touchdown, but it really depends on how much work Antonio Gibson is getting. For the rest of the offense, I got to stay away from it. Hunter Henry will be a medium risk just because going up against Los Angeles, I do feel New England's going to have to throw. I think the matchups on the outside are not going to be super beneficial, even though the Chargers haven't played as well as of late. And for Hunter Henry, they might need to look to him just like they did last week. But as you can tell, I'm not feeling great about this matchup for a majority of the guys, especially during championship week. And that's why this is going to be my Mando must-avoid matchup of the week. No specific players. I just want to stay away from this matchup as much as possible. If you have Herbert or McConkey, go for it. But if you're looking at any of these other guys, you definitely could be in for some issues. You're going to be sweating out your fantasy scores for a majority of the weekend, and you don't want to do that the week of Christmas. But hey, if you need some help with that sweating issue, Mando is exactly who to go to. They have a clinically proven formula that can help defeat odors and keep you dry for up to 72 hours. So if you're looking for help with that, Mando is the way to go. And right now, you can get $5 off of their starter pack, which is essentially 40% off the price for using code word headliners at checkout. So go ahead and hook yourself up with some Mando today and tell them the headliner sent you. Now, Denver at Cincinnati could definitely be a fun matchup. On the Denver side of the ball, Bo Nix really kind of up and down right now. Not a bad week last week. However, he had 5 interceptions in 2 games coming into that. And we know Cincinnati's defense is trash. So Bo Nix for me in this matchup has a really high upside. He is a top 12 quarterback. However, if the interceptions are an issue once again, that really drops his floor. And that's why he's a medium risk and not a low risk. If he hadn't had issues with the interceptions as of recent, he would be a safe play in this matchup for me. I am still okay starting him in fantasy championships, though, if you're looking for upside. The running backs are trash. I'm not going anywhere near them. I don't care that Estime scored a touchdown last week. I don't care that Javonte Williams saw 8 targets or whatever it was. I actually think it was more. I think it was like 11 targets. If you're looking in a PPR league for that type of an option, then go maybe with Javonte Williams. But other than that, I don't want to rely on any of these guys. Courtland Sutton will be a low-risk play for me because if anybody's going to get the work, it's going to be Courtland Sutton. I know he didn't really show up last week, but this is a very favorable matchup for him. And then we're going to see a hodgepodge of everyone else behind Courtland Sutton. One of these guys behind Sutton is probably going to score this week, but who do you think it is? I'd rather place a bet on that than try to put him into my fantasy lineup. Now, Cincinnati doesn't have a great matchup here, but these guys have been on fire. Joe Burrow, Chase Brown, and Jamar Chase. These guys are absolutely lighting it up right now, and they're playing so well that I don't care who they're going up against. They're going to be low-risk plays for me. We are going to keep an eye on T. Higgins. Now, there are some reports that say the ankle injury is not great. There's others that are saying he's fine. He personally said that he's fine and he's going to be back out there, but we know T. Higgins can get banged up. As of right now, he's a medium risk. If T. Higgins misses, Yoshivas becomes a medium risk instead, and then Mike Gesicki, we would probably talk about him a little bit more, but as of right now, I don't really want anything to do with him either. The biggest question mark in the Arizona-Los Angeles game is going to be James Conner. He had a great day last week, but after dealing with an injury, we don't know what his status is going to be heading into this week. We also don't know the status of Trey Benson either, so as of right now, it looks like Michael Carter could end up being the starter for the Arizona Cardinals. And if he is, because of the work he can put into the passing game, I do think he is a medium risk flex play for those of you that are desperate for someone to fill into your lineup. Kyler Murray is going to be a medium risk. We know he could run in a touchdown. We know he could have a solid day through the air, but right now he could be anywhere from like quarterback 10 to quarterback 20. It is a very wide range of outcomes for Kyler Murray. Marvin Harrison Jr. just doesn't have nearly the upside. He's losing too many 50-50 balls, and some of that he saw in college in terms of his ability to go up and get the ball and make big plays just has not happened against stronger NFL cornerbacks. So right now he doesn't have the upside. Trey McBride let a lot of people down last week. He is a low-risk play, though. He's going to get the majority of the targets, and it wouldn't be shocking to see him bounce back big this week either. Matthew Stafford, Kyron Williams, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, they're all low-risk plays. The only person I'm not going all in is Tyler Higbee. He's got some touchdown potential once again, just like last week, but volume-wise, it may not be there. Arizona, they're done. Officially eliminated this past week, and we could find ourselves in a position where we don't see them play some starters. Maybe if someone does get banged up, they don't come back into the game. I don't know what the injury report's going to look like heading into this game either, but I know that defense is not going to have the easiest time trying to stop any of these playmakers, and even though I think some of their upsides could be a little bit lower than what I would like, the floor is good enough that I think they're a low risk play. Well, Headliner Nation, there you have it. The first start and sit video of the week. Now, don't forget, there is going to be a second one. And I also want to remind everybody, if you feel like this video is missing some of the oomph that we normally have, that's what happens when we have to record before all the information is available. You can thank the NFL for having 2 games on Wednesday this week. It's already difficult enough when we have 3 games on Thursday for Thanksgiving, but 2 games on Wednesday for Christmas is kind of crazy. So we are doing the best we can with the information that we are able to collect at the time of recording. And if you feel like this video didn't help you out as nearly as you would like, we do have a ranking video that's going to come out. Leave us comments. We'll be active in Discord, and I am going to try and do a live stream potentially sometime during the day on Friday to help out with games over the weekend. But for now, Headliner Nation, I've got more work to do. Stay safe and healthy, and I'll catch you all in the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.